although it's true that any particular conflict or debate may be meaningless, it's just as true to say that any particular call for unity or cooperation between two conflicting sides may also be meaningless, misguided, pointless, hopeless. Why do we fight? Why are there so many conflicts of vegans against other vegans? I approach this in a very different way from most of the people on YouTube, and I think that many people have lost sight of the fundamentals of the situation we're now in. You'll find reflections of those fundamentals right up front near the top of my abandoned blog, my blog called Vegan Mind Tricks. There's an entry there that's titled something like Veganism, Fractious and Fragmentary. I view this as a movement with tremendous internal diversity, with very deep rifts within itself, and with deep and meaningful disagreements at the core about questions such as, what does the word veganism mean? When we get into questions of effective activism, but what any of us are actually going to do to try to bring the principles of veganism into effect in this world, then of course it gets even more fractious and fragmentary. But I do not start from a misconception that many of you have out there, that the purpose of us lending our voices to the airwaves is for all of us to just get along. It's quite false to start off with the assumption that the natural situation for vegans as human beings is to be in solidarity, unison, and unity, and that the disagreements between us have merely come about by some misunderstanding, by some inclement happenstance. Not the case at all. The disagreements between us may in many cases be based on real understanding, not misunderstanding, not a misunderstanding at all. I think there are basically two categories for why we fight, for why we have these internal conflicts. One is debate. I'll come back to number one in a minute. I think people lose sight of why debate matters, why it's really a positive and vital thing. And number two is ambition. The ambition to do something positive. And I'm not going to create a third category. I don't think there is a valid third category. But right now, I think what many people would see as a third category is so-called drama. Drama for the sake of drama. Scandal for the sake of scandal. I'll come back to all three of these things. First off, why do I say the ambition to do something positive? Wouldn't it be better if I said something like activism? Well, activism has much more narrow connotations in most people's minds. When I say do something positive, it may be something as simple as writing a children's book, writing and illustrating a children's book about veganism. And it may be something as specific to your town, to your location, as challenging the local school board on the curriculum that gets taught in schools. A friend of mine who I met here on YouTube, I'll leave anonymous for this video, a friend of mine mentioned to me her horror when she discovered that her kids in school were being delivered propaganda written by the egg industry. I've read about other instances in Australia of the dairy industry really having pro-industry propaganda being delivered to schools. Now, I find that very deeply disturbing for many reasons, partly because I'm a vegan, but partly just because I believe in democracy, transparency, accountability. I believe in, question of, public education really serving public goals. And I'm deeply disturbed by the role that, Catholic propaganda can play in schools. If you allow the Catholic Church to decide what's taught in schools, I think that's a tremendous ethical quandary, conflict of interest, what have you. And likewise, for those same reasons, fundamentally we have to question democratically who decides what's taught to children, who determines the message it's delivered in the classroom. and it should not be something bought and sold to the highest bidder. I neither want the egg industry to do that, nor the dairy industry, nor any other industry. I don't think that any private interest should be able to determine that, neither a church nor an industry. But with that aside, of course, teaching children that eggs are healthy and natural and normal and necessary for them to eat. Of course, as a vegan, that's a message that may be especially disturbing to me. But if it's the egg industry, why not the beer industry or anyone else for that matter? In any case, taking on a challenge like that, taking on the local school board, taking on whichever body decides local curriculum, that may not match the notion you have of activism in your mind. And of course, writing a storybook may not either. But the ambition to do something positive, whether it's in the arts or in politics or any other form of organizing human beings, that kind of ambition, it alienates people and it separates people, normally into small groups that really can cooperate in pursuit of that ambition. There's a common perception that artists are very difficult people to get along with. And I think that perception is mostly shaped by this issue of ambition. And people who are not artists really failing to understand what the ambition is, how it operates, how it separates people, and also unites people into small groups that really cooperate in pursuit of that goal. If you don't share my ambition, if I'm organizing a concert, we're talking about the arts here, but in some ways the type of human cooperation involved closely resembles politics. If I'm organizing a concert, I'm looking around, I'm working with people, I'm looking at everybody on that project, and it's like, look, do you share my vision for this project or not? If not, get out. I can't have you here, I can't have you at this meeting, I can't have you as part of this project. Only the people who share and support that ambition, maybe very short term, maybe 6 months. We all have to work together really hard in a focused way. I need a group of people who share this vision for this concert, who share this ambition, and that's it. Either you're in or you're out. Doesn't mean you're my enemy. Not the same as being a political enemy. But either you share that ambition or you don't. Back when I was involved with organizing Buddhist studies or organizing Buddhism, I can remember having meetings with people, other people who were involved in that, and we were organizing some things that were public lectures, academic lectures related to Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist history or what have you. And some of the other things were even closer to real politics, where we were lobbying to influence. It's not even worth describing this video. We were lobbying. We're lobbying to influence decisions. Let's leave it at that. But you have a meeting. Some of the people traveled an hour to attend that meeting. Toronto's a big spread out city. Some people came a long way to attend that meeting, to make those decisions, to discuss those factors. And if there's one person at the meeting who doesn't share your ambitions for what that group's trying to accomplish, what it's trying to do, it totally disrupts the meeting. And they've just got to get out. And it's not, this is why I have this in a separate category. Category 1 was debate. But when you're working in pursuit of that kind of ambition to do something positive, when you're getting organized, it's not a debating club anymore. I remember at one meeting like that, and there was a young woman who was invited by one of the other organizers, one of the people who really worked. And she wasn't even Buddhist. She was Chinese. She was not a member of the Buddhist religion anyway. She had no interest. And she kept disrupting the meeting. Like during the meeting, some of the fundamental assumptions, okay, so we're going to have this lecture. We're going to bring in this speaker to the university. We're going to set this up. And, there would be donations. Buddhism is a religion, Orthodox ancient Buddhism. It's all built on people giving donations, which is partly morally significant because one of the alternatives to donations is taxation. In Christianity, you have tithing. But anyway, so this is not tithing people, it's not taxing people, it's not charging an admission fee, but it's allowing donations to be voluntary. And, this young woman was disrupting the meeting saying she was morally opposed to taking donations. And we're saying, look, I'm sorry, I don't know how much you've studied Buddhism, but that's actually one of the founding principles of the religion is that donations are a good thing. And we're not going to debate it now. We can't stop this meeting. We can't disrupt what we're doing. And, we really have limited time and energy, and we're all focused on this vision, whether it's a creative vision or a political vision. Ultimately, either you're a part of this meeting or you got to get out. But I remember she revealed at some point that she wasn't even a Buddhist, so she shouldn't have been in that meeting at all. It was ridiculous. I don't know why she was invited to be there. Debate is one thing. What you do as a group in pursuit of a shared ambition is really another. And that meeting was not a debating club. We were not there to debate Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist economics or the history of Buddhism or the significance of donations as opposed to charging admission at the door. Those are interesting debates to have. They really are. But again, I'm not using the word activism because it's a little bit more narrow. But you have to recognize that. You have to recognize what it is for a group of people to really work, to work hard, to sacrifice their time and their money. But it's the time is the most precious part of all in pursuit of an ambition. And I mean, to stereotype slightly, I do especially often see people who are part of the fruit movement, the fruitarian movement, raw food movement. And I think they really do not understand that issue of ambition. That I'm not on YouTube just to be happy, even though I am here to make friends. I am here to make colleagues and connections and find people I can cooperate with in pursuit of any number of ambitions. This is not a mutual appreciation club, and this is not just a venue for me to come on and show you how much I'm enjoying my life or to encourage you to enjoy your life. What that's like, again, whether it's in the arts, or maybe in theory in the sciences, I don't know, I don't have that much experience with pure sciences, or in politics, to say, look, we have a group of people, whether it's 5 people or 50 people, whether it's organizing a concert or a lecture or an exhibition for the arts or a theater program or, it's not anti-democratic to recognize that when you're putting together a crew of people in pursuit of an ambition, what you're doing is, by its very definition, it's exclusive. Because you're just looking for the group of people who share that ambition and who are going to work hard to make it happen. And you can refer back, actually, there were some reflections on that in my conversation with American Unicorn, my long podcast with her. But she was trying to get some vegan events going, some vegan things going. And her struggle to find even a few other people who shared that vision and shared those ambitions. Okay. Now, debate, point 1 on my 2-point list. I think that people forget about the real meaning of the word debate. And this category of drama has distracted us from it even further. In debate, motives matter. It really does matter if I'm just trying to be clever for the sake of being clever, or if I'm just trying to get attention for the sake of getting attention, or if the debate has real outcomes, has real consequences for me, if it's about something I really care about. I realize that may seem like an overly emotional criterion to bring to the question of debate, but yes, the question of why are we having this debate, what do I have invested in it, that really does matter. There are many people, I think they've never seen the videos, there are many people who have the false assumption that my disagreement with a natural vegan was just about personality or getting attention or getting views. No. If you watch any of the videos dealing with the domestication of animals, any of the videos about dogs and cats, etc., it should be very clear to you, I really care about that issue. To me, that's really worth debating. And the justification for why I had the debate at all is exactly my sincerity and engagement with the issue. And I'm totally satisfied with the fact that, although it took a great deal of time and effort, at length, when it was all done, when all those videos were made, I did get to see the transformation of the worldview of quite a few people who watched those videos and who wrote into me saying they just never thought about it before. They never thought about it from my perspective before. And they now realize, wow, this is actually a tremendously important issue at the heart of veganism. And it has implications for everything. It has implications for how we live our lives, how we view the world, how we're getting organized as activists. And for me, that's a tremendously positive thing that I had that debate, even though the person I was debating with really didn't cooperate, so it was almost totally a monologue. But it's a debate where I know very well the other side's view, because of course the other side is the majority. The vast majority of vegans uncritically support pet ownership, uncritically make excuses for castrating dogs, and even uncritically make excuses for killing a cow in order to feed it to a cat in the form of cat food. I'm aware it's the majority position. But for me, speaking as the minority, that debate is justified, not by personal vendetta, not by seeking drama. It's justified by my motives, by my sincerity, the fact that I really do care about those issues. Whether or not I actually have anything intelligent to say, you can decide for yourself. But my motivations in that, you can disagree with me, but my motivations in that should be clear. So we have to stop thinking of debate as something that detracts from veganism. The reality is that this is one of the most fractious and fragmentary, internally divided movements in the world, because we do not even agree on what veganism is, on why it matters, or on why we became vegan, let alone how we propose to propound this to the rest of the world. As I've said so many times, if you ever want to humble yourself with the progress of the vegan movement, think about what percentage of the world's population we've managed to convince to stop wearing leather shoes. An incredibly small percentage of people will refuse to wear leather shoes. How do you want to get up that hill? It's a matter of real debate. And I think anyone who has sincere motives should get involved in exactly that way. Now, with that having been said, once you move past that debating phase, which we do a lot of here on YouTube, which is wonderful and positive, to actually trying to make something positive happen, like you actually want to put together a poster campaign, an advertising campaign addressing leather shoes, then the debates are over. Just for that group, maybe 5 people, maybe 50 people, say, okay, we're going to get organized, we're going to put in some time and effort and a little bit of money. Ultimately, you got to print the posters. Maybe everyone throws in $10, however much it costs. Maybe you're going to work with a professional illustrator, and that's going to cost some more money. Okay, you're going to do an advertising campaign related to leather shoes. Now we're working in pursuit of an ambition to do something positive. You can call it activism, doesn't matter. As soon as we're guided by that ambition, the debates are over. And simply you got to look at the people sitting at that table and say, either you're in or you're out. Because that's not the table where you have those debates. In terms of the third category, drama, people are forgetting the meaning of the word scandal. They're forgetting what a real scandal is. I've seen people trying to make a scandal out of the fact that one vegan sent another vegan a text message saying that she's cute, saying she's attractive. It's not a scandal, right? Stop trying to make scandals out of totally normal human relations. I'm interested in seeing these connections between people, this network, these relations between colleagues and friends expand and deepen and blossom over the next 5 years, because I want to see something really positive happen, something really positive come out of it. It can be myriad foundations. It may be myriad micro projects, publishing books, taking a case to the local board of education, putting up posters about leather shoes. It may be, or it may be one big foundation, more like PETA or what have you. It may be some big projects, some small ones. It's not for me to say. But human beings want to be loved, and for every one relationship that results in a marriage or even just a loving boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, people are going to have hundreds and hundreds of short interactions that may start with one person sending another a text message saying, hey, you're cute, do you want to meet for coffee? And it actually is really destructive and negative to see that kind of behavior vilified and turned into a scandal. And it's going to stop people from making friends. It's going to stop people from having real romances, and it's going to stop people from attempting to have romances that just turn out to be nothing. I don't know what percent, 90%, 95% of flirtations like that are people meeting for coffee. Meet for coffee, decide you're not interested in each other romantically. Maybe you become friends, maybe you become colleagues, maybe you continue cooperating in the vegan movement. Maybe nothing comes from it. For those of you who are taking a shot of vodka every time I mention Laos or Cambodia, get your bottles ready now. When I was living in Laos, there was a real scandal. There was a real scandal reportedly involving 2 Israeli guys who, in a hotel room, paid a prostitute to spend time with them. And when they left the hotel room, this prostitute was tied to the bed. I believe her ankles and her wrists were tied to the bed. And they had defecated on her. In plain English, they had left a pile of poo on her. And then they just left the hotel room with her stranded there on the bed until the cleaning staff, until the hotel staff came and opened the door and discovered this woman tied to the bed. Now, this was a real scandal, and it shocked the whole city, and there was a big reaction to it. I'll come to it in just a moment. And the sense of horror and moral outrage was made much worse by the fact that this woman could not scream for help. She was a deaf mute, as we would say. And at that time, she was very well known. I didn't frequent any of the bars she would frequent. I didn't know anything about her. But when the scandal broke, many people said to me, oh yes, they knew exactly who she was, because she was somewhat famous for being deaf, but for being one of these very hardworking deaf people who learned how to read lips and who could really communicate to an amazing extent, despite being born deaf. And she was a prostitute, and so many people in the town knew her, apparently because of the way she would socialize at the different bars and nightclubs. I never went to any of those places, so I didn't know. I learned about this as a story after the fact. Now, that was a real scandal, and that really shocked people. And I first heard about it because I noticed a whole bunch of hotel owners put up signs in their hotels saying, no Israelis allowed. So they responded to this by banning all Israelis, because they had the idea, the prejudicial idea, but based in this shocking experience, that there were all these Israeli guys who had just finished their military service and who were on vacation and who were carrying on in this odious manner. I could say more. Okay, that's a scandal. If something like that happened in the vegan community, it would be a real scandal, and we should talk about it. Absolutely. But I was talking to a friend of mine who is a vegan on YouTube and who is interested in making a positive difference in the world. And he was basically saying that he was now afraid to, or he was saying he was deciding not to flirt with or hit on or strike up conversation with or approach, women within veganism, that he was never going to communicate by text message this way, again, initiating relationships, because of the current climate of fear and hostility and back over trivialities, over nothing, over nonsense, over one person telling another person they're cute and saying they want to meet for coffee. And he was very surprised at my response, because I said, no, it's actually really important for you, me, future the movement. No, you've got to love people. You've still got to have that love in your heart. You've still got to initiate relationships, shallow relationships, friendships, love, whatever, the whole range. Because you don't know. When you start, you don't know what it's going to be. You don't know how it's going to turn out. I said, no, you should not be ashamed of this. You should not be afraid of this. You should be, initiating relationships with whatever, the opposite sex, the same sex, whatever you're into. No shade, just whatever you're into. This is a chilling effect on the whole movement that's really negative, really regrettable and really stunts our growth as people, as individuals, and will stunt the growth of the network as a whole. Again, I think people want to be loved. I think people want to be known. I think people want to have meaningful relationships. Some people want to have meaningless relationships also. That's okay. But the idea that you would silence yourself, censor yourself in that most personal and intimate of aspects of your life, that you wouldn't ask someone out for coffee, that's really very scary to me. That's very different from censoring yourself in writing a newspaper article or making a public declaration of that kind, making a speech on the radio or something. That's a form of censorship that goes right into the bedrooms of the nation, if you don't mind my using a hackneyed phrase. And I told this guy in this conversation, told him the anecdote I just told. I said, look, you've forgotten the meaning of the word scandal. And I told him about the scandal in Laos with a deaf woman who was, humiliated and victimized in this way. I said, look, that's a scandal. I said, if I find out that you have been asking vegan women to go out to coffee with you, to go out on a date with you or something, it's not a scandal. And I'm never going to shame you for that. I'm never going to make you feel ashamed for that. I'm never going to insult you for that or denigrate you for that. And if you go out for coffee with them and the relationship works out, that's great. I'm happy for you. If it doesn't work out, it's fine too. It's not a scandal. If I find out you went out with this particular woman and you went to a hotel and you left her handcuffed to the bed with a pile of poo to be discovered by the cleaning staff, that is a scandal. And then I would be furious with you. And then I would have questions for you. And I would say, why the hell did you do this? To this other activist I know, this other person I know, whatever it is. Okay. My point is not that nothing is scandalous. Some things are scandalous. And those are the things that you would address with real concern, even if you were just dealing with a personal friend. And then, of course, you would deal with real concern if you were dealing with someone in a position of real political power, of real political leadership. Check your head a little bit. Right now in veganism, does anyone have real political power? Is anyone in a position of real political leadership? The answer may be no. It may be nobody is in that position, or it may be one or two people who never get involved with the digital vegan demi-monde here on YouTube at all. There are little bits and pieces of political power scattered around. But compared even to the type of political power that exists within Theravada Buddhism, nothing's at that scale yet. But still, sadly, you see the type of disgraceful behavior that's inspired by just money and fame, without power even coming into the equation yet. But yes, it is coming. It is there in the future for us to worry about. There are questions of accountability and abuse of power. Doesn't hurt thinking about them now. So look, guys, that's about it. That's all I had to say in this video. I am on YouTube to make friends. And friendship, as I've said before, is unequal. I have real ambitions, and I'm honest and open about those ambitions. And if you were to look at who do I interview, who do I talk to on this channel, the main question is, do these people share some of those ambitions with me, or do they have the potential to work towards those ambitions with me? And in some cases, I'm delighted when I find that the answer is yes. I think someone like Vegan Gains really does have the potential to make a very positive impact, very positive difference in the world. In Canada, he's a Canadian citizen. Many of you might not have guessed that. You can listen to the podcast I did with him, what have you. Many of you, I think, assumed that the Light Twins didn't have a political bone in their body. The interview that the Light Twins did with me, for many, many people, that was the first time they heard the Light Twins talk about politics, talk about their political ambitions. And again, that's in Canada. So, they have that potential, and they have that desire. So sometimes, people surprise you. Sometimes even if you don't initiate that contact with that person, that colleague, for that reason, you find out afterwards either that there are people who are so dissatisfied with the status quo that they want to change the world for that reason, or that they have some particular goal, some particular project, some particular ambition in mind. They may have a very general ambition in mind. When Vegan Gaines said in my conversation with him that he wants to see fur become illegal, he wants to see fur abolished, he wants to see factory farming disappear, I very rarely think in terms that broad, but of course, I feel him. I sympathize totally with those ambitions. But I tend to think much more in that precise sense of how do I stop the Board of Education from including propaganda material provided by the ag industry, provided by the dairy industry? How do I build a foundation where I can raise enough money to employ a lawyer who can pursue that goal with me, so that I'm not giving depositions alone when I approach the provincial government, because I want to deal with education policy and a real question of democratic accountability, and for how those propaganda messages get into the school board, etc. I think in this much more precise and focused way, for better and for worse. Certainly there's room for visionaries. There's room for people with that much broader view of wanting to just see factory farming stop, wanting to see fur industry stop, of wanting to see a vegan world, or a vegan majority, or a vegan 5%. Getting to 5% vegans would be a huge accomplishment for planet Earth. Debate is a legitimate, positive part of that process. And in the pursuit of those ambitions, we do engage in exclusive behavior, exclusionary behavior, I could even say, because we try to put together groups of people who can really work in a close-knit circle just in pursuit of that one ambition, whether it's publishing that one book, putting on that one that one concert, putting together that poster campaign, etc., etc., etc. So those are behaviors that some people regard as negative, but they're really positive. And on the other hand, this third category, drama and scandal mongering, I think that is really negative. It's really pernicious. And it has impacts for how we operate politically and how we live our lives personally, that are far-reaching and insidious. And for those of you who perceive it as positive or perceive it as just entertainment, I'm going to have to ask you to just sympathize, to empathize, to imagine how different the world would look if you were sitting where I'm sitting, as someone who has very limited ability to bring about social change on planet Earth, but as someone who has enormous ambition to bring about that change, as someone who is getting on the telephone every day, Skype, of course, not the real telephone, but someone who's getting on the telephone every day and talking to other vegans who share those ambitions, who want to make the world a better place, but who don't know how and who don't feel confident that they can do it. We're trying to build up the confidence and the capacity to take on Parliament, to take on City Hall. And instead, what we're getting distracted with is people stabbing each other in the back over blowjobs.